listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hi, how are you today? Thanks, as always, for tuning in, whether it's just because the title of this episode got your attention or because you're a regular listener. I do really, truly appreciate it. And I'd like to say that if you get value out of these episodes, it would honestly mean the world to me if you were to leave a review or send me a message letting me know what you learned or how you applied it, or just say hi. I love hearing from listeners. And to me, that's the fun side and the gratifying side of doing something that is oftentimes one-sided, unless I'm having a guest on or something. I just, I'm sitting here talking to myself. So I am always imagining those of you on the other end, but when you review, when you reach out, when you say hello, that's when it all becomes a little bit more real. And I sure do like that. So just saying, today, I want to talk about goals. And this is going to be something I talk about probably often. So I've been delaying talking about it because I know that once I get started, I could be talking for hours. So I was trying to think, how can I concisely talk about this and give you something that's going to be helpful without taking mega time of yours to do it. So I want to talk a bit today about how goals can be triggering, how goal trauma shows up, and how all of that is actually a really huge gift if you're willing to look at it all and really get into it. So a couple of personal stories. Mine's many part as far as goal trauma and not recognizing it for a long time, because goal trauma, if you've never heard that term, or you just want to understand better what I'm talking about, it's not like it's like this defined thing, really, if you look it up. It's really when you've gone for something that's really near and dear to your heart, and you've put effort into it, and you've made valid attempts, and it didn't work out. And it can leave you with a traumatized feeling that prevents you from setting goals, or realistically setting goals, or doing them in those smart ways that goals need to be set in order to come to fruition. And for those of you that aren't familiar with, I'm not saying that you're doing them in stupid ways. SMART is actually an acronym that's used in goal setting that stands for things that are, what is it? The SMART acronym for goals. I just want to make sure I get it right. So here I am Googling. Here we go. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. It was the timely that I couldn't remember. Kind of ironic. I'm like, what does that T stand for? I didn't want to start spelling the word and then, or spell it like, Homer Simpson and, do like SMRT, smart, leaving out achievable. Oh no. Anyway, that's the acronym. So if goals aren't set in those kind of ways, then goal trauma can be really easy to come upon. So in those cases, you often find people that are either still acting as if they want to set goals, but they're doing something maybe they're just starting in a business and they've made, 50, 100,000, something like that. And now they're saying, my goal is $1 million next year. Well, sure. There's definitely a possibility that can happen. That's for sure. But we have a really hard time bridging that gap with our analytical mind. Now, seventh chakra power and all that kind of stuff come into play, and it certainly could happen. But the likelihood is that that goal feels so big that there's not a part of you that can work it into reality because it doesn't even feel like on the edge of possibility. So setting goals that are too big is sometimes a way that people deal with goal trauma because they don't really get connected to that goal because it doesn't really feel real to them. And a lot of times when I work with people on goals, realizing that there's all sorts of goals, the best place to start is with the financial goals. So I can find the most triggers there usually that lead to the root of the problem. And as an EFT practitioner, I'm all about the roots. I'm all about like, get me to the bottom of this. Let me clear it out and let's be done with it. Like, I don't want to wallow in the land of being traumatized over a goal. I want to figure out, where did this come from? What can I do to have my nervous system react differently to it and be able to think differently about it and act differently about it? What do I need to do to do that? Like, let's make it happen. So that's kind of my approach when I'm working with people. I want to know, like, what's the problem? How can we get to the solution? Let's make it happen. I don't like to make people talk about things longer than they need to. I love the fact that sometimes with EFT, we can even just think about things. You know, you don't even need to share with me the whole story. We can just work on it. You sit over there and you think about it. You think into it. You feel into what it was like, and I will walk you through what to do with it. And it works amazingly well. So anyway, I'm getting off track, as I tend to do. I just, it's funny that you can get so distracted talking to yourself. You know what I mean? And it's an example about how our mind works, because this is like my brain all day long. I'm, thinking about one thing, focused, and then all of a sudden I have shifted gears completely and done a 180 in another direction to something totally different. So I have started to kind of like write notes down when I do my podcast, because I know that's not fair to you guys for me to just come on here and have like a ramble session. It's not the goal either. I like to give people information that they can act on, think about, and do something with. So the whole idea of goal setting does need to be something that feels like there's a realm of possibility. But when you make that goal a little bit bigger, like let's say in my example that I gave before, person's making, their first year or two of money in their own business, maybe let's say they're at $50,000 and that they've earned so far. And they're not going to say that $1 million goal, because that would just sound so crazy to them that they wouldn't connect with it at all. But maybe they say, this coming year, my goal is to make $200,000. And when they say that, they need to think about how possible or impossible that feels. And what I would normally do at that point is say, just go ahead and double it. Because what I like to do is help people bring out those triggers, those things that are going to come out when you get the goal, not to that crazy unrealistic place, which, I mean, I'm not saying that $1 million is a crazy unrealistic place. I'm saying in this example that it could be, okay? Because plenty of people out there making $1 million, making multi-million dollars, making tons of money. But even in those cases, maybe you have $1 million a year and you're saying this coming year is going to be a $10 million a year. There's a total different mindset, a total different strategy for going from that to that, going from 1 to 10 million. Than there is from going to 50 to 100,000 and so on and so forth. It's a different game mentally. It's different looking business wise. There's usually growth in the business, different teams you're dealing with, all sorts of other things. So this is just an example. You can scale it to wherever you are to think about this if you're trying to apply it to yourself. Just realize, like, I'm not trying to say that $1 million is unachievable or whatever else. It's definitely not. I'm just trying to say that in this example, it might seem too big for the person that is imagining it when they've only made 50,000 so far. So we double it, and now we're thinking $400,000. And you have to start thinking about all the things that are going to come up subconsciously for you. Like, how would it feel to tell your family of origin that you make that much money? What would their reaction be? All of that, like first chakra stuff, like, would it be safe for me to make $400,000? What would need to change about my identity or my behavior or the way I show up? What would be different? And those are all things that even when you're not asking yourself that consciously, your subconscious is already responding to all of that, which is part of the reason that a lot of people don't make it to the goal, because the subconscious jumps in there, tells you all the reasons why it wouldn't be safe to do this and why you're better off just doing what you're already doing. And then there you are, status quo, not making the movement and the progress that you really want to make. So by looking at those triggers, letting yourself feel them, like, hey, what is going on in my body when I start thinking about this big, audacious, hairy, scary goal, whatever you want to think about it as, and feel into maybe what you would have thought about if you were still a child, like when you were like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. What would that version of you had said about this goal? Would they have been worried that your parents would be angry, or that you went in the wrong direction in life, or that they'd be really excited for you? Like, who knows? Like, your story is yours. So just look for those things that maybe would have made you feel unsafe when you make that goal feel kind of scary for you in the place that you are now. And then there's so many triggers that come up, and so many things that they can bring to light for you. So a lot of people will say, like, oh, I feel really triggered by something, and they seem irritated about it. I mean, sometimes being triggered means that you are irritable, and that's what you being triggered looks like. So that's not it, but look for the gifts, look for the clues, look for that emotion that is stuck, that is looking for you to give it voice, to honor it, and to let it rise up and out. Because again, that's what emotions want to do. They want to come up and out. They don't want you to stuff them. They don't want to get stuck. They don't want to, not have a place to go. So by letting all of those feelings out, the things that you think might make you not safe if you earn that much money, maybe it's the things that people are going to think about you. If you were to imagine yourself standing in front of everyone you know or have known, alive or dead, parents, grandparents, classmates, people you've worked with, people you went to school with, people that have been a key part of your life, you're in front of all of them and you're telling them, hey, I make this much money. I work only this many hours a week. I live this kind of lifestyle. What's their reaction to you? Are they mocking you? Are they happy for you? Are they cheering? Are they jeering? Are they doubtful? Are they looking for you to prove it? What's coming up in your head? Those are all things that I work on people with, because every one of those things represents something. And it's part of all the root causes that prevent people from actually achieving and bringing their goals to fruition in the real, tangible, physical world. And it's so often stuff that is just simply overlooked. So just look for those aha moments when you get triggered, even if it's not about goals, any area in your life where you're like, oh God, that really triggered me. What's going on there? Like, give yourself a second to feel into it and to give it space and just hold that for it. And because that's where we find the consciousness, the loving, compassionate energy that is needed to allow that to move and to give ourselves some grace for things that maybe we've been punishing ourselves about for years, or not speaking up about because of them for years. And it sucks to live that way. It's really just the bottom line. And all of your potential lies underneath of those blocks, all of the ways that you want to show up and have things work in your life and your business. And again, like, this isn't just financial goals. I use financial goals as an example because usually money triggers people pretty quick. and the ability to manifest or make or earn it, we can trigger people pretty quickly when we start talking about potential for earning. And we can get to the points that are going to clear all the other stuff too, no matter what the goal, through those financial goals pretty easily. So just something to think about as you set goals, because when we feel triggered, we're looking for, the person that triggered us or the event that triggered us or whatever. We're looking for that comfort. We're looking for something that's going to make us feel safe again, when what we really need is to be able to, face it till we make it kind of thing, and keep looking at what it is that we're still having fear about or still feeling lack about in our life, so that we can show up and fix it. We have so much ability and so much capacity to change and alter the way that we feel. And when we change the way that we feel, the actions and the realities, all of it changes. So don't doubt it, and don't minimize the way that this can work for you, because given time, whether it's a month, a year, a decade, you will see if you're taking that conscious time to both be in the moment, reflect on where you've been, and strive and reach for the future. You're going to see the way that your efforts to sort through the things that trigger you show up in you just having such incredible, incredible growth. And I was blessed to have dinner the other night with Jeff, my husband's great aunt, who's 83. And one of the things that she said, while not groundbreaking or anything, it's nice to hear it from somebody who's lived a lot of their life already, that just, anything that we want to do is pretty doable. It's just a matter of putting your mind to it and making a decision. It's pretty much what she was saying. And it's so true. The work that I do with people allows that to have a far greater amount of ease, because yes, you can show up fearful and scared, feeling unsafe and self-sabotaging. And if you keep facing it enough, you're likely to maybe figure it out, work through it, and get to the end point. But most people don't get to that point because it's hard and it's challenging, and they're missing the piece where they get conscious about what the blocks are and remove them. And that's where it's like smooth sailing. It's like taking a block out of the way if you're sailing down a river and you hit a dam and, open the dam, and then you get to go through. And, I don't know. I'm having a visual in my head about this cruise we did down the Erie Canal when we went on vacation when I was pregnant with Jordan. So 5 years ago or so, we'd gone to Niagara Falls and everything else. And we did this boat trip on the Erie Canal that was really cool. And we got to go through the locks that they have where, the boat goes in and then the locks close on either side. And so it's like a wall on either side, back and front, and on both sides. You're kind of in this box, and they just flood it out with water so that the water raises so that you go up to the next level. And the same thing when you come back and you go down. It's like a water elevator. But that's the same way with clearing blocks. You get to go through. You might have to pause in the locks. I hope I'm getting the terminology right, for a little bit, for the things to flow through and to get you to the right level. But then it's smooth sailing. And the pause is nothing compared to the momentum and the speed that you get from having stopped, reflected, and done the work. Okay? That's where people get it wrong a lot of the times, because they think, I can't slow down. I just have to keep going. I have to keep working towards the goal. Sometimes you just need to do a little self-work to make it all happen so much smoother. And the other thing about goals is to remember that they're subjective. And what you might think is a huge, crazy goal, somebody else might be thinking, oh, that's cute, or I did that years ago, or how nice. And maybe they don't even mean it in a condescending way. It's just that they've already like aced through that like it was nothing. And they're thinking that's going to be really easy for you because I've been there and I've done that. But when you haven't been there and done that, that goal that might seem really easy for somebody else might seem like a complete huge mountain for you to climb. So it's all about perspective and it is subjective. And we all remember those milestones that we hit along the way, whether it's your first, $1,000 month or your first 10K month or your first 50K month, your first 100K month, and so on and so forth, 500 million, and they keep going up. And at any point along there, when you're celebrating that milestone, there are always other people out there that have double, triple, quadrupled, way exceeded whatever it is and experienced gold milestones that are quite a bit bigger. And that's proof for you that it can happen. And it's also proof that there's people out there that can always be helping you at that next stage. So, masterminds and things like that, I think are always so incredibly important. And, you'll start to realize along the way, as you expand and things trigger you less, the way that your decisions have also perhaps changed. I remember when I was getting ready to sign on with the network marketing company that I'm still a part of today. So like 7 years ago. And the cost to get started was, well, with the way that I was starting, which was pretty much the way that most people were starting, $160. Now that also included products and all sorts of things that were going to benefit me, things that I probably would have paid that much for, even if it didn't come with an opportunity to serve others with those same products and services and make a commission. You have no idea the amount of thought and talking and deliberating and anguish almost that I went through to make that decision. Because, I've talked about this before, perhaps I don't remember if I talked about it in my 3-part series in here to unlock your energy to unblock your energy to unlock success as a mompreneur. I think that was the name of the series. But I was so afraid that it was going to fail and that I wasn't going to do it. And I downplayed it. And I wanted it so bad. It was these two sides of the coin. I wanted to be a rock star and go into this business opportunity and ace it. And I also wanted to just put it out there that like, okay, hey, maybe I'll just improve through these products and things myself, and that alone will be good enough. But it was that whole like manufactured self-love kind of thing where I was comforting myself before I failed. I was so afraid I was going to fail. And even though I became really successful in that business, it took way longer than it needed to because I couldn't see the fear, the self-sabotage, and the blocks that were right in front of my nose. I couldn't see clearly all the ways that I was afraid that my friends would think I was a weirdo, or that people wouldn't want to talk to me, or that, what other people would think about me, all the things I was afraid of coming at me judgment wise, all of the things that I was afraid of having to level up to make the money that I wanted, all the ways I was going to have to show up differently, going from, someone who had been a stay-at-home mom for a number of years to somebody who was trying to consciously work and serve again in another way. And once I could see those and started working through those, it went from, I can't even tell you all the way that it changed. And I promised I was going to be concise. So I'll probably do more about this in another podcast. But like, I used to be so afraid to reach out to people to sell them something for $100, thinking like, oh, this is massive, because I felt like it was such a big decision. And it wasn't even that we didn't have the money. It just, for whatever reason, spending money in that way was triggering me then. It doesn't trigger me at all now, but so much like fear and apprehension and, rethinking messages that I would send or the ways I would talk to people or whatever, because I was so afraid of them saying no, or I was afraid of my own power if they said yes. And it was crazy. And then, a number of years later, going to, trying to do my own business and sell my own products and programs, and having to see that right at the get-go and say, no, 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 no. And I'd already worked through it. And it was the difference between being afraid to sell something that was $100 and being able to confidently sell things, into the, many multiple thousands of dollars and not think twice about it. Those blocks being removed make a huge difference in your ability to make progress. So set your goals. Don't hold back from that. I learned that lesson the hard way too. When I was first starting to do different mindset coaching and dabbling, a little bit with EFT and a little bit with just kind of mindset coaching, I worked with a group of women and I did not require them to necessarily do the assignments or do the homework or stay accountable. I showed up to teach and deliver what they needed every week. And I wasn't strict and they didn't do the work, and they learned a crap ton. They have tools out the wazoo that they can use, but guess what? Nobody leveled up in the way that they showed up to because they didn't set the goals. They didn't go through the process. They didn't hold themselves to allowing themselves to feel the discomfort of the triggers and figure out where they were coming from. And I ended up feeling like a failure. Now, for me, that means that I changed things about the way I coached. It was everything, live and learn, figure out what works, figure out what doesn't. And you know what? Not one of them was upset or disappointed that I didn't hold them to it. And they weren't upset or disappointed about what they learned or the coaching that they received. In fact, they all had wonderful things to say about it. And they were excited to learn more and continue with it. But I felt like I had failed them because I know how much more they could have gotten out of it if I had kind of like held them to, feeling that fire within them, working through the triggers and the pain and holding space for them to do that. So you don't know what you don't know until you know it. But I do know that a lot of the goal setting that people are doing isn't effective for a lot of these reasons. And I also know how to make it effective and how to flip the switches in those dark corners where things just aren't working out, sometimes time and time again. I mean, I went through a lot of different businesses over the last 25 years, and I had a lot of successes, but I also had a lot of things that in looking back, hindsight, I can really see how they would have been different if I'd worked through them in this way. So gosh, do it as soon as you know. Like as soon as you know better, do better. And I'm just saying this will up-level every part of your life. And goals are just one way that it can do that. So thanks for listening. I would love to hear about your goal traumas or the ways that you're trying to set goals right now and the kind of help that you could use making them happen. And I would be happy to speak to that more if you reach out and share those details with me. Thanks again for listening. Have an awesome day. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.